Hey guys, so today we're going to work on Crocs, and my suggestion is either grab a pair of blocks for Crocs, or if you absolutely don't have blocks, you can do this on the ground, so no worries. Essentially, Croc is a bit more of a handstand or hand balancer move, and it's done in kind of like a transition a lot of times from a handstand. And it's done, circus performers do Crocs quite a bit. All right, so let's get started. So first things first, you're gonna have to have strong wrists. So let's stretch out our wrist just a little bit, all right? So take your hands, we're gonna turn them backwards, get a little stretch in those wrists. Gonna shift them back and forth, shifting back a little bit. Now I'm gonna turn the fingers. Go ahead and take them sideways. Just a little bit of shifting side to side. All right, and now I'm going to take the hands forward. I'm going to make little teepees and then shift down, teepees, shift down, and another teepee. All right, shake out those wrists, roll them out, shake them out. Okay, so lastly, let's just take the hands and I'm going to slide them. Actually, it's easier on the yoga mat. Slide the hands under the feet, get a little wrist stretch. All right. And really at any time, you can stretch your wrists. Between every move, every time we work on a croc, take a wrist stretch, because wrists get such a lot of pressure, you know, and you definitely don't want to injure the wrists. All right, so let's get started. We're going to take our blocks. I'm going to show you how to get into Croc in the fastest and easiest way. So I'm going to use my blocks, and I'm going to set my blocks down. I'm on my knees for now. I'm going to walk my knees a little bit over to the side, all right? And now from here, I'm going to hollow out the belly. Now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to shift my weight. You notice that the elbow is going into the hip. So I'm going to shift slightly forward, keep those knees bent, bring the toes slightly together, put the elbow on. Now, all the weight's on one arm, okay? Scoop the belly in, start to think about lifting the knees up and bring the knees out to the side just to get a little balance. Now slowly rotate a little bit and then shift down. All right, now we're gonna work the other side. So like I said, the wrists get an intense beating because all of your body weight is on one wrist, right? So I'm gonna shift to the other side. So from here, I'm going to shift over to the other side of that block. Now notice how I'm kind of perpendicular to the block. And what I'm trying to do is I'm separating my knees pretty wide. My left elbow is going into my hip. And it's really kind of somewhere in between the hip and the belly button. And you'll lean forward, elbow on, shifting that weight, lifting the knees. Okay, don't worry about straightening the legs yet. Just try to lift the leg, lift the knees wide. Hold it. And then come down. Shake out the wrist. All right. Now let's stretch our shoulder just a little bit. So I'm going to fold in. Take my hands back. And stretch out the wrist. All right, here we go. So now we're gonna do the same thing and we're gonna work on legs straight. Okay, so I've got my blocks. And again, you can do all this on the floor. Okay, so same exact thing. If you don't have the blocks, you can set them aside, shift sideways. Remember, elbow right into the hip. You are at an angle. So do you see how I'm kind of at a little bit of an angle? Shifting, elbow on, the fingers point straight forward. A lot of people try to turn their hands out, just keep the fingers forward. Elbow into the hip and try to lift the knees out. You want to have the chest up. A lot of people also dip the head down. Keep the head up. Okay, breathe. And then release. Again, second side. So you see, you don't need the blocks. Get ready for that second side. Remember, the elbow's going into the left hip. So basically all my weight is on my left elbow and the wrist. All right? So I'm shifting, leaning, shifting the weight, elbow in. Remember, fingers pointing straight forward, knees wide, and then start to lift the head up. Just get the knees off the ground, out to the side. And then release. Shake it out. All right, now we're gonna work on straight legs. Okay, so this time I'll do it with just the floor since, again, a lot of people probably don't have the blocks. So from here, same thing, the fingers are gonna be forward. I'm gonna start by pulling the knees up, straightening the legs, and I'm walking my feet kind of out to the side. All right? Now from here, I'm gonna let my hip rest, chest is up, lean. The head does go down a little bit and then the legs lift. And slowly rotate. You see how I'm shifting? You can rotate to the left, but the hands stay forward. Now try to lift the chest. And then come down. Drop the legs. Stretch those wrists. Shake them out. All right. Now we're going to the other side. Remember, we're all gonna have one side that's way stronger than the other. Okay, so here goes. Remember, fingers will be forward. Start to straighten the legs. Oops, sorry. Legs to the left. I'm gonna shift the weight. And my hip, left hip, is going on to the elbow. I'm leaning, head up, shifting the weight and lifting the legs and rotating. And just try to engage. You want to lift those hip flexors up as well as the chest. And release. All right. Take a little break. Shake out the wrist. So you'll see the core is just really engaged, and the hip flexors, that's one area that I think people forget, is the hip flexors. So I want you to think about this action. Here's a drill that we can practice when you're on the ground, warming up. You'll come down here, and I want you to work on this action of squeezing and lifting the legs. You can also bend the knees. You can have the knees bent, but it's just this engaging and lifting. So try it a few times with the legs straight and bent, just squeezing up, okay? And then shift back. All right. So now we're gonna work on lifting the hand up. So that really is what makes a croc, is when you do the rotation out to the side, then you take the hand and you lift it off. So that is the most challenging element of the entire pose, and you have to have the weight evenly distributed. So you really want to think about the legs in a completely flat plane. So you don't want to tip one hip up and down. You want to think about being flat. All right, so here we go again. I'm going to shift my weight. I'm going to come onto the mat this time. Send my legs back. I'm walking my legs out to the side, all right? Now, they're off to the side. I'm bringing my hip up and onto my elbow, my arms bend, all right? So shift forward, engage, squeeze the legs up. Try to keep them even. Now start to rotate. Toes pointed, chest up. Send the arm out to the front. kind of up towards the ear. It's okay if you drop a foot. Just try to lift the chest. Squeeze the butt. Look towards that far corner and lift and reach that arm up. All right, and come down. So to be fair, the lift of the fingers is going to be seconds. Once you get stronger, you can start to build up to like, 5, 6, 7, 8 seconds, but initially it's going to be 2, 3, 4 seconds. That's just how it is, and we're all going to have a side that's a lot stronger. Okay, so here goes my left side. So I'm going to shift. Legs, you want to try to keep them straight. Shifting the weight, fingers pointing forward, walking around to the side. Remember, you're trying to get that elbow right under the hip. Shift the chest up. And then the legs curl up. Chest up. And then slightly rotate. Bring that right arm out. Lift the chest. And see if you can lift that arm. Okay? Take a little rest. And stretch. So, oftentimes, like I said, it's easier on blocks. Right. It's easier on blocks or on canes. And I can show you that as well. Let's do a couple fun little transitions. We can do a headstand tripod to a croc. It's kind of a fun one, and then a handstand to a croc. All right? So the one hand is going to be in a croc position, and the one elbow is going to be down. All right? I'm going to shift up, and I'm going to work on taking the leg. Let's do a croc first, just to play with it. Shifting the legs out. Chest is open. Balance those legs and try to curl the legs up. Okay, you can even bend one knee, lift the chest. When you get really solid, you can take this arm and extend it forward. All right. If you're feeling super strong, you can lift the arm in the air. Okay. So now I'm going to play with this fun transition from a funky croc going from a sort of a scorpion type shape. Okay, so here goes. One hand is in pincha, other's in croc. The elbow, you'll tuck the toes. You can either kick up or you can place the knee on the arm and shift up. All right, try that again. You get the idea. Knee in. All right, and then both legs come over, chest open. You can straighten the legs, bend the knees, reach the chest, drop the legs. You can send one up or the other one up, rotate, extend the other arm. Think croc. And then release. All right. So that's a fun little transition. Again, it's not easy by any means. Okay. So, I call that the funky pincha to croc. All right. So now you can also work on croc from a handstand. I don't really honestly often ever do croc from any other movement. I don't do croc from a headstand or forearm stand, which, except for that one that you just saw. Because you do want to have one elbow down. So it'd be kind of tricky from any other arm balance, in my opinion. All right, so I'm going to show the handstand one. So I'm going to float up. And mind you, you have to have a pretty solid handstand. That's a given, right? So I'm going to shift the weight, float up.
And I want you just to think about the energy going forward. Leaning forward, a little twist. And I land on the elbow. Start to rotate, reach that arm out. And eventually you can twist, maybe bring the arm up. All right, and then shift back. Whew. Almost squashed Marley. All right, so that's a pretty advanced move, the handstand to croc. It involves a lot of energy going forward. The wrists get a beating. Again, stretching out those wrists. I'm gonna stretch mine out. My right wrist particularly feels all my weight. All right. And I wanna mention that when you do that lower, the energy is just, you're really slowing down the energy. You're right, trying to keep the legs up. The minute you drop the legs, everything comes crashing down. So you want to always have the legs floating high, and it really goes for any other arm bounce. So I want to kind of point out a little bit of difference between in yoga mayurasana, because that is a pose that I think often gets confused with croc, and I will show you quickly. Okay, so with mayurasana, the hands turn backwards. You'll, just like croc, you'll start with the knees wide, and the elbows come kind of into the belly button, and the fingers turn backwards, all right? And then you'll shift. It's okay, the hand, it's hard to have those fingers all the way backwards. You can start with the the chin on the floor, and use the chin to help you lift, and lift the chest. All right? And hands come back. So the pose is definitely not easier than croc. In a lot of ways, it's harder because you have to have the hands totally in reverse, turned backwards. And I'm not a big fan of it, but I know it's in the Ashtanga series. So Ashtangis like to do that pose. Okay, so, so the last thing we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you a little bit of a croc transition. So I'm gonna use the blocks. Okay, let me grab the other one. So I'm gonna show you a little bit of side to side. I'll come a little further back. So I'm gonna shift to the right. Marley's kind of right in my way. So I'm gonna scoot over a little bit. He just likes to be, you know, in the action. So I'm gonna shift my hip over, chest up, scoop and lift the legs, rotate. Notice that rotation. Chest up, arm out. Really squeeze the butt. Lift the chest. All right, now we're shifting sides. So I'm lifting the chest, bring the hip over. My head had to dip a little, chest up. Other side, bring this arm out, scoop and squeeze the butt, and bring the arm up. All right. Whew. So lastly, I just wanted to mention that crocs are actually really easy, much easier on canes. I have a set of canes that I'd love to show you guys. I'm going to show you how croc can be done on canes. So stay tuned. I'm going to grab them, and you'll see the difference. It's easier to dip the legs on the canes. So behind you is my set of canes. These are not the ones that I use regularly anymore. These are an older pair that I keep at the house. So I'm going to show you, they're a little bit high, but I'm going to show you how much easier it is to load up onto the canes for a croc. So it has a nice benefits because you don't have to get low on the ground. All right, so here we go. So you'll see the top of the cane is almost parallel to, or almost the height of the hip, which is kind of nice. So I can shift my hands onto the blocks. Now I'm going to walk my feet over. Now I'm placing the hip right into the, right onto the elbow, okay? Now I want you to really take a note of the feet, and you want to engage the legs right away. So I'm going to scoop and lift my legs, all right? And then from there, I'm going to rotate and curl them up and back. Notice my head still stays up, all right? I'm going to show you that again. So I do not expect you to run out and buy these, okay? You can also, like I said, you can do everything on the floor, but this is, as I mentioned, Croc is a bit of a, it can be a handstand performance thing, so that's why I'm showing it to you. All right, so again, when you get on the canes, you want to have the elbow right on into the hip, all right? So I'm shifting 2 fingers on the front, 2 on the side, all right? And then I'm gonna walk my feet around. Marley, move. Marley, move, 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 move. Move your thing. Okay, so I'm gonna shift to the side. My elbow goes into the hip, okay? Now, I'm gonna bend my knees for a moment, and I'm going to lift the knees up, and now I'm gonna curl the hips up and back. Now I'm gonna rotate a little bit. Chest up. I'm gonna start to get light on those fingers and reach that arm up. Trying to keep my legs parallel. They can drop. And then release. Okay, so I want to keep my legs pretty straight. So I don't want to have bent knees unless I know that I'm doing a specific pose. Essentially, it's like you just want to make it look pretty, right? So now I'm going to show you the other side. You'll start, always hands forward. You'll walk around to the side of the apparatus. The elbows go into the hip. I'm going to bend because I'm a little taller. I'm going to scoop my legs up. Now I'm going to take my hip flexors and open them, almost like I'm squeezing the butt. Now I'm going to rotate, look up, strong legs, reach the arm. And then shift down and